Welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast. I'm Lonnie Goldsmith, the editor of TCG Folk. This week we talk with Zachary Paige, an organic farmer in northern Minnesota who just recently launched North Circle Seeds, an organic, sustainable seed business out of his Vergas, Minnesota farm. We talk about the Jewish connection to his work, how he got into sustainable farming, and why he started this new endeavor on this week's Who the Folk podcast. Zachary Paige, welcome to this week's Who the Folk podcast, and thank you for joining us.
Yeah, great to be here.
Zachary, you are in Vergas, Minnesota, which until your mother, who gave us the heads up about your venture that you're working on now, told us you were in Vergas. I didn't know what Vergas, Minnesota was or is. So for starters,
Yeah.
Where is Vergas, and what brought you up there?
Yeah, I mean, my mom should be on my publicity team because she's always talking me up.
She did a great job, let me tell you. She sold you very well.
Yeah. She's always on Facebook, liking and loving everything. So yeah. Vergas, Minnesota. I came out to White Earth in 2012. I was teaching music in White Plains, New York, for a few years, and in this life I got a bachelor's in music composition, and I was just finding myself doing sustainable farming in Vermont, and just wanted to get to know this seed saving, and also why cultivated plants were cultivated, and the difference between that and wild plants. So that led me to learn a native perspective in White Earth, working for the White Earth Land Recovery Project, and kind of drew me to this area at that time, and also drew me to plant breeding, which I went to school in Iowa State. So kind of just stuck around and met really great community of sustainable farmers and the native community, and found really good work here, meaningful work.
So how did you go from music composition to farming? What was that path?
I think the path was, what do I want as my career? And actually applied and got into grad school for music composition. I was excited to go, but I also was drawn this other way, which was wanting to have, I had this burning desire to want to learn and live in the woods and live in nature, which I didn't have too much experience growing up in suburban Long Island.
not much nature, I suppose.
Yeah. I think I was deprived for a while, and I think my first experience in going into rural America was in college. We went to a bluegrass festival, so that was like in my 20s already. And yeah, I just loved it. I loved just driving down dirt roads and looking at the stars. And I think that was a big part of it. And also wanted to learn the basics, so learn the basics of life and where our food comes from. And was really excited about farming in Vermont when I did that. So I think once I got a taste, I just was off. And when I was on the sustainable farm in Vermont, I was curious about why sustainable farmers don't save their own seed, because sustainable to me would be saving your own seed.
Right.
And why do a lot of farmers and organic farmers not do that? So that was a big question and kind of a curiosity that I was having.
So are sustainable farmers, if they're not saving their own seed, are they're just planting with new seed that they're purchasing each year? Is that typically how that works then?
Yep. Yeah.
Wow.
Most market farms will typically buy a majority of seed that's hybrid seed. And hybrid seed is essentially two parent lines. They cross together by a seed company. And then you're kind of, you're playing by their rules, because they're the breeders. They're coming up with this seed. There's nothing wrong with hybrid seed, except that you can't save seed reliably. Okay. And once you start buying hybrid seed, you need to buy it every year. And since hybrid seed does promise a little bit more vigor, which is true in most cases, it's kind of like this addiction. Like you're buying hybrid seed every year, you have to buy it. So you're not learning the skills of seed saving, which is a ritual that humans have been doing for 10,000 years. So that's kind of gone by the wayside just in the last 100 years.
So I don't know what that is. What is seed saving?
Yeah.
Could just because I'm a basically lifelong suburbanite, perhaps. What what is that, and what was it that led you to this sort of level of interest?
Yeah, I guess it was a slow burn. Pretty quick. I went to seed school in Arizona, Native Seed Search put on, and Bill McDermott taught. And his style and passion are just so infectious that I just had the bug right then and there. So seed school is a week-long course in everything seed saving and history of seeds and where we are now and how much diversity is lost, and amped me up. And that was in 2012. And ever since then, I've kind of been on this train of wanting to save all the seeds that I grow and learn about the different varieties.
So how do you go about saving seeds? If that's something that somebody's interested in trying, how does that work for somebody who's just trying to plant like a small vegetable garden at their home?
Yeah, I would say you would start small. If you're already gardening or already farming, you pretty much know the basics. So picking something out that is self-pollinating is a big plus, or it is less of a challenge. So basically, there's the structure of the flower is either self-pollinating or cross-pollinating. So self-pollinating, they have both male and female parts right inside the flower. It's going to fertilize itself. So you don't have to worry about cross-pollination of, if this is a pumpkin, it's going to cross-pollinate with my butternut squash or my buttercup squash. Actually, those are two different species, so they wouldn't cross anyway. That's a bad example, but but yeah. So starting with something like beans is a good way to start because it's self-pollinating. Beans are relatively easy to grow. The bean is the seed itself, so that would be a decent one to start with.
Okay. So recently, I believe it was a year ago, you decided that this was going to sort of be your thing. You purchased a home in Vergas, and you're on 46 acres of land.
Mm-hmm.
And
did my mom tell you that?
Oh, she may have mentioned. Listen, proud Jewish mother.
Yeah.
And in the interest of full disclosure, to let people behind the curtain a little bit, I had reached out to you a year ago after she had reached out to me, almost exactly a year ago. And
yeah, I saw that.
Timing wise, for I think what was going on in your life and everything, the timing for us to connect on this didn't work, and now it had. And yes, she's very proud of the home and 46 acres
yeah.
you've turned into, and you've created this organic farm, correct?
Yeah. It's been something that's been brewing. I think ever since that seed school.
Okay.
When I went there, I think I had it in my mind that I was going to start a seed company, and when I kind of knew in the back of my mind that things were going in that direction. So I just been gaining skills. I took sustainable farming classes and went to school for plant breeding. So those were technical skills that I was retaining, but then on the community side, just being active with Sustainable Farmers Association of Minnesota. The Lake Agassiz chapter near us has been a great resource and group of farmers that I feel really close with now and feel a sense of solidarity around. It's been it's been last year since I bought the farm, but it's been about 5, 6, 7 years of working with amazing community farmers and seed savers, and every year just exchanging stories and what grew, what didn't, and processes on what varieties people are growing. So we're at where we are now, in large part due to the other seed savers. And I think the North Circle Seeds Company, that we kind of call it company or collective, because we have so many facets of what we're trying to do. We're trying to do education, workshops, seed saving 101. How can you save your seeds? And I don't think that our company is trying to do those hybrids, right? We're trying to sell open pollinated seeds where people can save them themselves. And we think that's a good thing. And we're not trying to have people buy seeds from us every year, that we have available, but we're promoting seed saving and open source seed, and also growing them in organic conditions.
So you mentioned North Circle Seeds. That's the business that you started now, or that is about to start. Depending on when you're listening to this, February 8th is launch day for your company. What type of seeds are people going to be able to buy, and how does that process work? Because I think a lot of people who are listening, when they go to plant, they're probably used to going to either their local garden shop, for example, and getting a packet of seeds. Is it something that's going to be similar?
Yeah. This year we've got a free poster, and I'm sure it's going to be up for the whole year until we sell out. So go to northcircleseeds.com, and we've got a beautiful poster displaying a lot of our vegetables that you could order. And yeah, that kind of replaces a catalog for this year, since we have got just 24 varieties, but they're very intentionally selected. The vast majority.
Just 24? That sounds like
just 24.
Sounds like a lot for starting out.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. And Johnny's Seed catalog and Haimoy, they've got hundreds, right?
Sure.
But
gotta start
but
somewhere.
Yeah, just starting out and choosing varieties that were intentionally chosen, not just varieties that work well or yield well, but also some of the varieties are important culturally, like the African eggplant that was donated by Simeon from Fargo, and the community there loves eating those eggplants. So it was a good trade that we had. I helped grow some in starters and provided him with those plants, and he donated some seeds to the company. So just building up relationships and trying to promote equitable food system as well, and have fun eating amazing food in the meantime. That's kind of like the thing that drives pretty much everything, I would say.
So is there sort of an inherent Jewish value that you find, or how this venture sort of connects to your Judaism and how you choose to practice?
Yeah. I think, one thing that I remember my rabbi saying is something about 10%, always kind of giving 10% as charity, or give 10% back. So that'll I'll see how that will work through with this. And with saving seeds, there's always giving back. So we're working with the White Earth community, Native community, and Latino and African. So we're going to see how the best way to do that after talking with those communities, and also like where these seeds come from themselves, and the telling the story. We have a Seed Stories podcast, and not everyone is comfortable growing or buying or selling seeds. One other way of talking about the seeds and the history and their diversity, we've been doing on our podcast, which has been really fun to hear different stories of seed keepers.
So is the idea of seed saving and that kind of sustainability, did you pick that up from your experience working with the tribes on the White Earth and the in White Earth with the Ojibwe and other tribes up there?
Yeah, there's been I've learned a lot of different stories and the way native seed keepers would save seed, and it's different. Every tribe does seed saving in their own way and has their own stories. So there's not just one way. There's a vast spectrum of how people grow for seed, and then see seed as relatives, living, breathing relatives. And seeds themselves are just in a dormant state, and they are just waiting. They're just in a state of dormancy, and just with a little warmth and water, they're able to grow. But yeah, keeping an open mind, and also working with all people and all communities has been definitely a part of the mission of what we're up to.
Is there any story from any tribe in particular that might that resonates, that maybe that method is the one that you've chosen to try and replicate a little bit more so than any other?
There's specific things, and then there's one that I liked hearing. I thought that it resonated to a degree with genetics as well, is Terry Lynn Brandt, Mohawk seed keeper. She said in the Mohawk tradition, and what she's known, that if you grow a seed for 7-8 years, it's your seed. You've had that interaction, and that connected with me personally, because I truly believe, just from my own experience, that we're kind of co-mingling seeds and plant us. There's some kind of pheromones out there that's like, I love to grow garlic and I love to grow corn. I don't love to grow cabbage. Okay. So why is that? Like, why am I attracted to certain plant species? And I don't know. That's part of the great, that's part of this mystery, right? But I've been growing seeds every year, these very specific varieties, and you kind of start to feel this interaction with the plant, with the seeds, as it's giving 7 generations. And there's something kind of right about that number, I think, where and it's true of genetics. When you dehybridize a seed, basically, if you're changing the genetics itself, it will stabilize over 7 or 8 years. So there's something just intrinsic about those numbers, 7, 8 years. And I feel that way about some of the seeds that I've been growing now for 7, 8 years, is that seed has changed. And it's changed because of what I liked about it, how I selected it, and then something totally mysterious, I think, too.
And I don't want to venture too far into, the Bible or anything, but there is, if I do recall, and I'm sure hopefully a rabbi will listen and correct me on this, something, the cycles of 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine, and the
right, yeah,
in the Joseph's dream. So it's interesting that there's some correlation between cultures and the same sort of how the numerics work there.
Yeah, there's something about these rhythms and patterns that are just natural. I think like a week is 7 days long. For a reason. When we feel kind of tired at the end of 7 days, it's just just something in us that we have some of these rhythms and patterns. Yeah.
Well, sometimes maybe we feel tired after fewer days. That's just
3
some
days,
of us.
Yeah.
I'm just
Yeah.
Not speaking for you or anything. So again, February 8th is when people can start ordering their seeds for the year, right?
Yeah, and people can check out our website, northcircleseeds.com. We've got events as well up there, and the first event is the first event that we're selling seeds is the same day, February 8th. We'll be in St. Joseph at the Sustainable Farming Association of Minnesota, and we'll be presenting there as well as tabling. So if you want to be the first person in person to buy seeds, and also interested in hearing more about what we're up to, and also Sustainable Farming Association Annual Conference is a great conference. But yeah, we've got other educational workshops up there on the events, and the best way to order seeds would just be to go to the seed shop tab at the top, and you could read about the seed varieties up there, and choose and purchase online. Yeah,
that's awesome. And you mentioned your podcast. Where can will you plug that? Where can people find your podcast?
Yeah, it's called Seed Stories, and you could find it on Spotify or Apple Podcast, Podcast Republic, Google Podcast, and then we also have a tab on our website as well.
Excellent.
But it's probably better to do Spotify or Apple Podcast, because you'll get the notification every time we get a new show.
That's why I love those two.
Yeah, and we're trying to get one out every Friday. So.
Well, that's excellent. All right, well, last couple of questions, and we'll let you get on with your evening, as is where at least as the when we're recording this here. Favorite Jewish food?
Latkes came right to mind.
Okay.
I love. I don't know if it's Jewish, but just like pastrami on rye.
Oh no, I think we claimed that one.
Yeah.
Good
pastrami on good rye bread.
Absolutely.
It's kind of hard to beat. Yeah.
And favorite Jewish holiday?
I'd have to say Purim. I've played music for Purim in the past, and it's just really fun playing the music over Haman, and just it's kind of like one of those fun holidays.
Well, excellent.
People dress up.
Oh yeah, no, you can't beat that. The music and the fun and the sort of the family part of it too. When you're as is the thing I have to worry about with kids and all. But it is a great holiday for all of that.
I guess I have one more thing to say about
of course
Jewish seeds. I suppose is it's funny because a lot of seed companies, I go to the seed conferences. Organic Seed Alliance has February 14th this year, and I've noticed there's a lot of Jewish representation in the seed world.
Really?
So, yeah, I think definitely more than. I mean, it's such a small world, the organic seed world, and Jane Rabinowitz, who works with the About To Initiative in Canada, and Mike Levine and Nature Nurture Seeds, and a lot of people. I have an interest in one day traveling back to where my grandfather and grandmother are from, Hungary, Poland, Ukraine area.
Okay.
And growing out some beet seeds. My grandma talked about that was one of the foods that her mom would cook a lot, and see what other kind of seeds were in that area, and then connect with the other fellow Jewish seed savers and kind of see what they might be interested in growing, and kind of grow some of the old seed varieties out.
That's awesome. That sounds
fun
really cool. It's a really fun way to connect with your passion and your religion and your heritage all in one.
Yeah, and then with the seed stories, that goes hand in hand too, because that would be great to learn more.
Oh,
about,
absolutely.
Where these species and varieties came from, and what great foods were cooked with them.
Oh, that sounds fascinating. Zachary Paige, thank you very much for joining us. Best of luck getting North Circle Seeds up and running very, very soon, and hope we get to meet you sometime when you're in the Twin Cities.
Thanks for having me.
The Who the Folk podcast is a product of Jewfolk Inc. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review the show. If you have a suggestion of someone who should be on the show, please email me at editor@tcjewfolk.com. Also, go to tcjewfolk.com/podcast to listen to our new shows, We Won, Let's Eat, the Jewish Food Podcast, and The Jews Are Tired. a weekly recap of Jewish news through an analytical lens. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.